Hi, my name is Madeline, and I chose the Shinto mythology. The Shinto culture is a polytheistic culture, and their gods are called kami. According to Britannica, Shinto is more readily observed in the social life of the Japanese people and in their personal motivations than in a pattern or formal belief or philosophy. The Shinto belief came into the world to distinguish indigenous Japanese beliefs from Buddhism, which was introduced to Japan in the early 6th century. There wasn't really a founder for this religion, it just kind of developed over time. So, as for the creation myth, according to Shinto mythology, inhabitants are born, not made. There are two main characters in the Shinto myth of creation, Izanagi no Mikoto and Izanami no Mikoto. The two kami were a couple that got married and gave birth to the islands of Japan, and they also gave birth to the natural deities that shaped the islands. This creation myth introduces very important concepts such as male and female roles, marriage and copulation, and birth, death and the afterlife, and the birth and death cycle. So, in the beginning, the world split into the heavens and earth, and 3 kami deities came into existence. The first kami took root from them, and from them, 2 more kami were born. These first 5 were formless, and they had no partners. But after these 5, kami deities were then born in pairs after. The 7th and final generation was Izanagi and Izanami. The land was also formless, and it floated like oil on water. And the older deities gave Izanagi and Izanami a spear and said, "Bring order to the world." And the first thing the couple did, they tried mixing the oil and water together. And so when they took the spear out of the mixture, a drop was produced, and that drop became the island Onokoroshima, which is where they lived. And after they created the island, the two decided to get married, and they had also tried to have children. But the first time, Izanami read her vows first, but their attempts to have children failed. So they tried again with Izanagi reading his vows first instead. They then birthed other islands of Japan and other deities to shape them. Unfortunately, after giving birth to fire, Izanami passed away. Izanagi didn't want to be without her, so he went to get her back from the land of the dead. When Izanagi found her, she had eaten the food of the underworld and therefore could not leave. Izanagi bade her to appeal to the deities of the underworld, and she agreed, but she only asked that he not follow her and to wait outside instead. Eventually, Izanagi got impatient and went to seek her out. He found her, but it was too late. She was a corpse. Furious at being seen, Inazami chased Izanagi out of the underworld until he was able to seal the exit of the underworld with a boulder, trapping Izanami away. After that whole ordeal, Izanagi decided that the underworld was an ugly and defiled place, and he decided to purify himself by cleaning. This act today is considered the origin of misogi, a ritual cleansing that is done at Shinto shrines. It's just basically where someone bathes or immerses themselves in water. While Izanagi was washing his face, 3 new deities came forth. The sun kami, Amaterasu Omikami, from his left eye, the moon kami, Tsukuyomi no Mikoto, from his right eye, and the sea kami, Susanu no Mikoto, from his nose. They ruled the heavenly realm, the night realm, and the seas. So the 2 I picked to compare to Shinto, I picked Taoism and Greek mythology. So some Taoism similarities to the Taoism creation myth. Both these worlds came from chaos, and then heaven and earth appeared. In Taoism, there's a giant called Panku, and he molded the earth with help from animals and the deities. And in Shinto mythology, the deities shaped the islands. When Panku died, parts of his body became things like the moon, river, sun, wind, etc., just like when Izanagi washed his face and the sun, moon, and sea came from him. Some differences is there was an egg and incubation period in Taoism versus where the world just split into heaven and earth in Shinto mythology. In Taoism, things were made instead of born, like Panku kind of like made things. And then Izanami and Izanagi gave birth to the islands, so that's a difference. Shinto mythology just that they don't have a yin and yang, which I guess you'll learn from the person who explains Taoism. And some Greek similarities from Greek mythology. Both worlds sprouted from chaos. In Greek mythology, there was just chaos, and then earth and the sky appeared. Also in Greek mythology, beings were born, like the moon and the sun were born from the Titan Hyperion, and so they became a thing. Like Atlas, the Titans and all the gods were born from their parents. Like Cronus and Rhea were the gods' parents. Gaia and Uranus were the Titans' parents, hence and so forth. In both mythologies, the underworld is viewed as a negative place. Nobody really likes to go down there. And also, a similarity is that in both worlds, if you eat food there, you have to stay down there. That's like a thing. There are couples in Greek mythology, just like, your average couples. And also in this myth, Izanami is sentenced to live in the underworld forever. She gets trapped by the boulder. And in Greek mythology, Uranus is sentenced to the sky. Two totally opposite places, but they're still both set in somewhere. Some Greek mythology differences between that and Shinto. Chaos created Gaia and Uranus. They were not born. Those are the only two that weren't really born. No notable things were sprouted from anyone. Like, for example, like when I say that, the sun and moon, they had parents, like I mentioned earlier, Hyperion. And then in Shinto mythology, the sun and moon just kind of formed when he was washing his face. So that is my mythology.